This is the final video of this playlist, and I'd like to make some concluding remarks to wrap it up. So what have we looked at? We've looked at 14 different religious, theological, philosophical arguments and traditions for a strictly naturalistic origins for the theory of evolution. So what are they? They are the problem of evil, Deus ex machina, infradignitatem, parsimonious creation, dysteleology, deism, against miracles, greater God, plenitude, God of the gaps, the anthropomorphic warning, the infinite regress, utilitarianism, and the intellectual necessity. Now, I normally teach this in a conventional 3-credit semester class, and it really requires a full semester to really dig into this and learn this material. I've taken that material and boiled it down as best as I could to make this YouTube playlist. So if you haven't already done so, please go back and watch those videos for the full context and understanding of how theology and religion have driven science, and in particular, the theory of evolution. So let's wrap it up. What can we learn from all this? What does it tell us? First of all, Darwin's theory, when he presented his theory, was a long shot. Simply from a history of science perspective, any theory is a long shot. The history of science, historians tell us, is full of failed theories. There's a lot of dead bodies along that trail. It's very difficult to create a theory, come up with a theory that is true or is approximately true. Most theories fall by the wayside. From a Bayesian perspective, we say that Darwin's theory, as with any scientific theory, had a low prior. The prior probability of scientific theories is low simply because most scientific theories don't succeed. That's just the way it is in science. You need to raise that probability with the scientific evidences, but this is where Darwin's theory ran into trouble. It ran counter to the scientific evidences. And what were those evidences? Well, things like the fossil record and the experience of the breeders. The fossil record revealed an abrupt nature. New populations, new species appeared abruptly in the fossil record. That was well known at the time. The breeders had experience of limitations. The breeders knew that you couldn't just breed a population ad infinitum. There were limits. You could only go so far. Darwin had to grapple with these evidences. They weren't supporting his theory. Then there's the obvious problem of complexity. The biological world is chock full of complex structures, and how could they have evolved? Darwin struggled with that one as well. And since Darwin, it hasn't gotten any better for his theory. All of the fundamental predictions of evolutionary theory have failed. There's a long history of failed predictions of his theory. And after all, that's a key in science. You make predictions and see how they turn out. When they fail, it's not a good sign. I have a link that I've pasted down below to a website that I put together just listing a survey of these fundamental predictions of evolutionary theory that have failed, but it's really just scratching the surface. There's many, many more there, but there's a couple dozen predictions there you can look at and get an understanding of how the theory of evolution has failed on the science. Because of all these problems, evolutionists have had very heated debates and disagreements about exactly how evolution is supposed to work. How did evolution create the entire biosphere? There's no consensus on this. These debates began in the early 1900s, more than a century ago, and have continued on up till today. And today you have evolutionists calling for a rework, a major change, a dropping of the traditional ideas that have been held through the mid-20th century. So there's a lot of dissension and disagreement and heated debates over exactly how evolution is supposed to work. So it's not like it's converging on a consistent theory of evolution. But this stands in stark contrast to the claims of evolutionists about their theory. Evolutionists are very confident. They consistently insist that evolution is a fact, no question about it, beyond all reasonable doubt. So how do we reconcile these scientific problems, the scientific failures of evolutionary theory, with this high epistemological claim that evolution is a fact? This is where the religion comes into play and these earlier videos in this playlist. It is the religion that underwrites this fact of evolution, this claim that evolution must be a fact. The stronger the argument for evolution, the stronger the evidence or argument for evolution, the more metaphysical, the more religious content in that argument. So I like the term theological naturalism to describe this. It can be a little confusing because people often think of theology as advocating for creationism or miracles, but it can do the exact opposite, as we see in this playlist. Historically, theology has argued strongly for, advocated for, insisted on, mandated a theory of evolution. Theological naturalism, theology underwriting the naturalism. Now, what can we say about these 14 different traditions that we've looked at comprising theological naturalism? Well, first of all, there's too many of them. 14 different arguments coming at it from every different angle. The old phrase, "methinks thou dost protest too much," comes to mind. Too many arguments. There's an old joke, it's not my dog, it didn't bite you, plus you hit the dog first anyway. Too many reasons given. That's one problem right off the bat with this theological naturalism. Another problem is the deceptiveness of these theological arguments. People making these theological arguments for evolution aren't even aware that they're making a theological argument, let alone that they need to defend the premises, the theological premises they are employing. They seem to think it's all just a given, that they're just reminding the reader of something that everyone knows. It seems that the more indebted they are to metaphysics, the less aware they are of their metaphysics. But this makes for a very powerful apologetic. Evolutionists are very confident, and they have powerful arguments for why evolution must be true. So the normal science, the regular day-to-day science of trying to figure out how evolution works, rests upon this apologetic literature. The apologetic literature does the heavy lifting, and then the scientists can go about trying to figure out how evolution works regardless of all these thorny problems. Those are just research problems. The truth of the theory is a given. So religion is foundational to evolutionary thought. Religion is foundational to evolutionary theory. The religion is required. Evolution is a religious theory. Religion drives science, and it matters.